everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here, there we go. Today I am here with my February wrap up, if we can get situated. I read honestly quite a lot in February, so I figured we'll just jump right into it. So I'm gonna start with audiobooks. So first I read School for Good Mothers. I buddy read this with my sister because we have been choosing and then reading books together and kind of checking in every couple chapters. I don't know why I just explained what buddy reading is, but anyways. So I ended up giving this 2 stars. This is marketed as, at first I thought it was a thriller, which is why I initially suggested it for us because we both really love thrillers. It's ultimately literary fiction, which is like a little sprinkle of sci-fi. It's about this mom in the really close future, and Child Protective Services ultimately in the United States have really tracked down on parenting, or really like hunkered down on parenting. Even for the smallest thing, you will be sent to like this school and like might lose custody for your kids. So this mom ends up doing something really bad, honestly. I don't know if we're supposed to feel sympathy for her, but she like leaves her 8-month-old daughter in pretty much like an exerciser, which I had no idea what it was. My sister looked it up. It's like pretty much just like a jumper for a baby, I guess. An exerciser, I've never heard it called that, but an exerciser, like one of those little like jumpers that don't move. So their 8-month-old baby in that for like 2 hours home alone. It almost made it seem like we were supposed to feel some sort of like sympathy for this woman, and I'm just like, she kind of deserves to be there. So the whole book was kind of pointless because I felt like its whole like what it was trying to say was kind of pointless, because to me she deserved to be there. So I was like, oh yeah, this sounds about right. But the writing style is so dull. It's so dull. It's so slow. This book was just like, oh my god, it was dragging on to like the depths of my despair reading this book. I thought that maybe something would get revealed. You know, at this point I knew like in my reading that it wasn't a thriller, but I still, for some reason, I was expecting something, right? The whole time it's just super boring, and like nothing really happens. It just is explaining the lessons in the school, and some of them are like a little creepy and like, yeah, whatever. But I guess I don't get this. We're both not big into literary fiction. I didn't know it was going to be literary fiction. It's literally marketed as like sci-fi, and it was barely even that. So just a disappointment. Next on audio, I listened to The Love Hypothesis. Oh, The Love Hypothesis was so nice. I understand the hype completely. This was so cute. It was everything I wanted. I love that it was the characters felt so multi-dimensional. They had so much dimension. I feel like typically in romance they're pretty like copy-paste. Like to me, like Tessa Bailey's characters, I really enjoy her books. I have never given a book of hers like, you know, less than 3 stars. Like I enjoy them, but all the characters do kind of run together for me. These ones were really distinct. They had so much dimension for a romance novel. They had depth. They had you know, more characteristics to them than just like the typical romance, like, oh, I'm a professor, like, and I'm like strict, and I'm like a good student, you know, whatever, like a shy good student, like all of this stuff. It's like it was more than just that. And I was kind of expecting it to just be like surface level, so I was really pleasantly surprised when the characters did have more depth and the subject matter had more depth. They talk a lot about like women in STEM, and I thought that was interesting, and harassment of women in STEM, and I think those are really important topics, and I'm super glad that they got brought up. And it's just such a well-rounded romance novel. Like it touched on deeper topics. It had more to say. The romance wasn't you know, it didn't happen too fast, didn't happen too slow. There was some miscommunication and whatnot, but nothing to make me like annoyed or anything. I just thought it was really great. Like I said, I listened to this, but I think if I read it physically again, it might even jump up to like a 5-star. Because normally when I listen to books and I really like them, when I pick them up physically, I tend to like them even more. So I think this one would be like maybe a 5-star and a new favorite if I ever pick it up. Then for Valentine's Day, I listened to Royal Valentine. It was like popping off, super popular on Hoopla, so I ended up just like giving it a shot just to see what it's all about. It's a super short novella about this woman who works in like a library, and she meets a guy there, and she ends up going to London to work at a different library or to make connections for her job. She goes there on like a work trip and she ends up meeting the guy again, but this time she realizes he's like a duke or something, and he lied about that the first time, and so she's like, I don't know, it was short. I gave it, what did I give it? 2.5 stars. It was like nothing special. I did think that it was cute for Valentine's Day, you know, I picked it up on Valentine's Day. It was just, you know, it was cute, but the writing style just wasn't for me personally. Like it simultaneously felt like a ton was happening like way too fast and nothing was happening at all. Like it was focusing on the wrong things. We were getting too much too fast of things that didn't matter, and the things that did matter were happening way too slowly and didn't even really make sense. Particularly I feel like with novellas, since you have such a short amount of time and short stories, such a short amount of time to get all your points across and to flesh out your whole plot, you have to be like really careful with that, and I feel like this one just didn't hit the marks. Then the second book that my sister and I listened to was The Death of Jane Lawrence, which I gave 2 stars, unfortunately. This was on my highly anticipated reads of 2021 list, so I am so bitter about this, it's not even funny. This had everything that I should have liked. Gothic, right? Witches / magic, whatever. Like ghosts, haunted house, you know, that sort of stuff. An independent, you know, fierce fighting female main character. That has like everything that I want, plus a little romance mixed in. That has everything that I look for. And it's historical. Oh my god, I forgot that. Historical and romance. That's like 5 things that I particularly, when I see, I'm like, ooh, check. I found myself definitely like still, like even once I was getting like bored with the book, I still was intrigued by what was happening in the end. So it left me curious enough to continue and still have that little sense of like curiosity about it. But overall, the story just like doesn't make sense, and too much was going on. The chapter by chapter plot was so boring to me. Like she does this like 5-night ritual thing at one point, and like each chapter pretty much is like a different night, and I swear that was getting through that chapter was like me getting through a 5-night ritual. It felt like it was taking forever, and it was so repetitive, and all the magic system wasn't fleshed out. It didn't make sense. The haunted house ghost stuff didn't make sense. Everything that tried to be a reveal just didn't make sense, and I feel like it kind of made me as a reader be like, wait, what? When really, I feel like when you have a big twist, you're supposed to be like, oh my god, that was crazy. But instead I was just like and I had to go back and listen to like some parts again just to make sure I wasn't missing like key bits of information. And I wasn't. I listened to some parts 3 times over and I wasn't missing anything. It just didn't make sense. After I finished reading it, it still didn't make sense to me. And I texted my sister and she was like, same, doesn't make sense to me. So I went on, I watched live shows, I watched reviews, I read reviews, and it seems like not a lot of people know what was going on with this book. Like not a lot of people actually do understand what was even going on. So it didn't help me at all. And it seems like the consensus is just that it's not that good of a book. I think it had so much potential, and I think the plot is so interesting, but the execution was just really bad. And then the last book that I read on audio was We Are Not Free. This was a 4.5. Maybe, I think if I read it, this is another one I feel like if I read it physically, it would be more highly rated, just because I feel like I connect with literature a little bit better that way, which is obviously a personal thing. But this was beautiful. This is about the concentration camps, ultimately. I think they called them something else. What did they call them? Internment. Call them what you will. Camps that America had where they imprisoned every single citizen of Japanese descent during World War II here in America. It's from the perspective of like 14 different kids, I think, and it's like each chapter is a different person, and we go back to the same people only like twice, I think. So really you're getting a different person's perspective every single time. That is the only reason that for me it got marked down half a star and is a 4.5, is because I felt like it got a little overwhelming with all the different characters, and I kind of started like mixing them up. But I do wonder if reading it physically would help that and allow me to make the distinctions between the characters a little bit better. But the audiobook is amazing. Each person is a different voice. It's a full cast audio, and it works amazingly. in this format. This was beautiful. I cried. I was like bawling at one part. I woke up, I was telling Girk about it, and I was like telling him about what happened, and I like started crying again. And it's just heartbreaking to me that this really happened. And the author uses, it's not a nonfiction, but she did use stories from her own family and her own family friends to inspire kind of a lot of these characters. It's just heartbreaking. I feel like it's something that we don't teach enough in US history, even though it's a huge part of our history and something really, really terrible that we did. And there's almost no accountability there, and I feel like it's not taught the way that it needs to be. This was just heartbreaking. I learned so much, and even afterwards, I went on my laptop and I looked up pictures and I read articles, and I just wanted to learn more about it because it's not something that we're really taught in school. I knew that it happened, and they tell you that it happened, like, oh yeah, and then we did this, and then they just move on. I highly recommend it. Then let's move on to ebooks. I read Eyes That Kiss in the Corner. This is a children's book just about, you know, personal acceptance, acceptance in your appearance, acceptance in your ethnicity, acceptance in who you are as a person, and understanding the uniqueness in your individuality and just like the beauty in that uniqueness and individuality. It was stunning. I want a hard copy of this so bad. I think it's so beautiful. I think it's so important. And I'm so glad that we're getting more children's literature that just highlights more culturally diverse backgrounds and just allows kids to see themselves in literature. And I just think that it's so stunning. So this was a 5-star. Easily. Then I picked up Eve #1, which is a graphic novel series, a middle grade graphic novel series that's a like sci-fi dystopian. I picked this up because I am doing the Pop Sugar Challenge this year for the first time ever, and there's one that's like read a book that has a palindromic title or something, and this was a struggle for me. So I ended up I went on like Goodreads, and there's some forums where people help you like or list out what books they're reading for this challenge and like all that. And this was one that was recommended, and it sounded interesting to me anyways, so I went ahead and picked it up. This one was great. I gave it 4 stars. There's only 5 issues. Like the whole collection, the whole series is only 5 issues. And my Hoopla right now has issues 1 through 4. So I kind of want to wait and see if they end up getting 5, or if they end up maybe like putting up the book that has like all 5, because I know on Goodreads that there is a like collection that has all 5. And Hoopla normally has like the volumes. I think they're called volumes when it's like more than 1 issue. So I'm just kind of waiting for that. I do want to continue in the series. I thought it was really good. The writing was amazing. The art style is beautiful, and it's a really fun, action-packed middle grade graphic novel, and I highly recommend it. I think that it was really, really good, and I'm actually really keen to figure out like where the story is going. Like it left on a cliffhanger and kind of like definitely leaves you wanting more. I was never bored. Then I have Quiet Girl in a Noisy City. This is one that I read just for fun. I had an extra like borrow from Hoopla for the month, and so I was just flipping through some things trying to figure out what I wanted, and this one just seemed really interesting, and I ended up loving it. This is like a 4.5 for me. It's a graphic novel all about like an introvert and the problems that she runs into on the day-to-day, and just the things that she would prefer. And it literally was like she took like things that have actually happened to me or thoughts that I've had and put them onto a page. I have never felt more seen in my life. It was very comforting, actually. It was funny, and it was a good time, but it was actually for like a fellow introvert and somebody with really bad social anxiety and just anxiety in general. It was actually very comforting for me just to kind of see myself on the pages. This was so fun. It was so, if you're an introvert, if you love books, if you have trouble with like social interaction, anything like that, I highly recommend you pick this up because you're going to love it. But she has a couple other books out, and I am very, very interested to pick them up. I really, really loved the art style and just what it had to say. Then last but certainly not least, I have 2 books that I read physically this month. The first one is Carefree Black Girls by Zeba Blay. So this was a very, very, very hard book to read in the beginning. It focuses a lot on the author's own depression and suicidal ideation and her experience with that, and just her mental health, and it's just a very intense book at the beginning. The latter half to me felt a little less intense, and I definitely did not prefer it. I did end up giving this 3 stars just because, like I said, like there's a whole chapter in here on Cardi B, and like I felt that was very irrelevant and it didn't really fit in with everything else that she had to say. So there were just some parts that I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Also, like with the whole title, like it's literally a celebration of Black women in popular culture and pop culture, and I didn't really get that though. Like that's what sucks is like, yes, she talks about pop culture a lot. She talks about movies and music and TV and everything a lot, but this is a little misleading because it's not really like a celebration. This isn't an ode to Black women in pop culture or anything like that, really. There's some parts that you could argue are, but overall as a collection, not really. I also didn't expect this to be memoir based as much as it was. If you watch this channel at all, then you know I actually hate memoirs, autobiographies, biographies, anything like that. I actually hate. It's the only genre that I really have never found something that I have enjoyed. So based on this, I had no idea this was going to be mainly focused on her own experience, and the first couple parts it is. I did end up actually really enjoying those parts, and I definitely felt like there's a ton of good things in this book, but I just didn't expect it to be memoir based. I thought that it was going to be about women in pop culture, and I learned a shit ton from this book. Like, do not get me wrong, like this book, I annotated this like to death, and I learned a lot. Like all my green tabs are things that I've learned, and like I learned a lot from this, and I definitely like will hold on to it and refer back to it and, you know, flip through it just to remind myself of the things that I learned. But overall it was just really lacking as a collection, and it wasn't what I expected because it's very misleading. I did read this while also listening to the audio though, and I definitely recommend the audio because the author narrates it herself, and you can really feel her passion. Like when she starts talking about stuff she's passionate about, she starts talking a little bit faster, and I think it just brings more to the story. So I did like this. If you're into memoir nonfiction and you're interested in a discussion on Black women in popular culture, then I would definitely recommend picking this up. But it is memoir based for the most part, and it's not really, I wouldn't really say like a celebration, more just like a discussion. Then I read The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deisha Philyaw, and this is a easy 5-star read for me. Easy. There are, how many short stories? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 short story collections in here. I don't know what is up with me and reading short stories lately, but I gave the first one 5 stars, 2, 3, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 4. I think it averaged out to like a 3.8 or something like that, something around there. But I'm jumping it up to a 5 because I feel like this is just such a strong collection, and the writing style is so lyrical and to die for. This is another one that I learned a lot from, and I highly recommend. My favorites, if you were curious, my favorites were definitely Eula, Peach Cobbler, Snowfall, How to Make Love to a Physicist, and Jael, I would say, if I had to pick. Those are probably like my top ones, which, yes, that's like half of all of the stories, but I really, really loved them. There was only one that I gave the 2-star. There was only one that I couldn't really get behind and didn't enjoy, but this is an amazing collection. This is definitely one that I'm going to go back and read again. And again, this is one that I annotated quite a bit, and I just love this to death. I love this way more than I was even anticipating, so highly recommend this one. And that is everything that I read in February, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to see more content from me, and like the video if you did like it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!